Hey there, Jedi younglings, it's the Comics Kid 2099 here, and I'm here to talk about an episode of Batman Beyond. If you haven't seen the episode Sentries of the Last Cosmos, then you will either want to avoid this video, as it will contain spoilers, or stick around and let me refresh your mind on what transpired here. Either way, the choice is yours. We're introduced to another friend of Terry and Max's who we've never seen before and will never see again, but the episode acts like he's been around this entire time. His name is Corey, and he's super into video games. For that matter, the episode pretends that Terry and Max are also into video games, even though we've never seen them play video games either, but that's neither here nor there. Corey is so wrapped up in this game that he and a few other raging fanboys, episode's words, not mine, are invited to the home of the game's creator, where he convinces them to dress up like the Sentries of the Last Cosmos from the game and do his bidding. Only problem is, his bidding is quite evil. Batman has to convince them that not only are they doing foul deeds, but the dude who commands them isn't in fact the real creator of the game. The episode ends with the fanboys going to the house of the real creator to chat with him about the game. Cue credits. So even though this episode is not at all subtle about its Star Wars references, with phrases like a long time ago in a cosmos far from Earth, having the big villain wear an evil robe and shoot lightning from his hands like the Emperor, and even go so far as to mention that Jar Jar is lame, this episode really bears more resemblance to The Last Starfighter than Star Wars. In fact, it's sort of the anti-Last Starfighter. That movie has a kid who plays video games, and his skills he got playing these games help him save the day when he finds out what's in the game is actually somewhat real. But this episode takes that very basic plot and twists it just enough to make an interesting but very different episode. The kids who love video games in this episode, that's all they have, or at least that's what they say. I imagine if the episode had been longer, or we had more of a chance to look in on the lives of these kids, we would see that their status as outsiders is slightly more self-imposed than what they claim. After all, Terry and Max also like playing these video games, but also they have other interests, so the episode paints them as being pretty normal, reasonable kids. Of course, they're also main characters, so the series isn't going to make them as odd as they try to make these other kids. And of course, there's what this episode is saying about video games, and more generally, getting too wrapped up in something like video games, movies, TV shows, comic books, etc. In The Last Starfighter, I don't think you can make a case that that film is in any way anti-video game, since he uses his abilities he learned from that game to save countless lives. But this is an episode where these kids who do nothing but play video games are manipulated into committing crimes, almost to the point where they can't tell the difference between real life and fantasy. Now, admittedly, in a world where the Justice League of America exists, as does all the inherent weirdness of that group, it would be a little easier to be convinced that the Sentries of the Last Cosmos video game series is based on reality. But these kids are still naive enough to go and commit crimes just because a man they know nothing about, but respect because he allegedly created a video game, told them to. Now, I should reiterate that this episode is not coming out against video games, or saying that if you play video games, you're a useless miscreant and society has no use for you. What I think it is saying is that it can be dangerous to get too wrapped up in a particular aspect of pop culture, not just video games. If all you do is read X-Men comics, watch X-Men cartoons, watch X-Men movies, read articles on Yahoo about casting for X-Men movies, and whenever your friends can drag you into the sunlight, all you want to talk about is X-Men, then you might have a problem. Of course, this episode dramatizes that kind of problem by saying that these kids with this particular problem are capable of being manipulated into almost killing a man. Now sure, some people may see this episode in a different light. They may see it as straight up making fun of people who play video games. They'll make up hashtags for it and call it geek shaming, and they'll pick at this episode till kingdom come. And sure, near the end of the episode, when the real creator of the game tells these fanboys it's just a game, maybe that does seem like it's against people playing video games. But the rest of the episode speaks a very different message. Overall, I really like this episode, even though it's a little bit iffy on its message in the end, although I think the message is pretty clear when you look at the entire episode as opposed to just the last few minutes of it. But I really enjoyed this episode, even with its not so subtle references to Star Wars, which maybe was part of the reason I did enjoy it so much. So those are my thoughts on this episode, but I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And also, if you like this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you did like this video, you are in luck because every other week I talk about Batman Beyond, and in the other weeks I talk about Batman the Animated Series. And also I do other videos throughout the week, so check those out as well. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.